Hello and welcome to this presentation of the influence of environment ethics of the environmental concern of chemical engineering students. My name is Jorge Breña Ore, and I am a professor of the National University of Engineering, Lima, Peru. We are a technological university that trains future engineers in Peru. The research work is focused on evaluation to viability of an applied ethics capable of reorienting the professional action of future chemical engineers in Peru. To train of future chemical industry skill in the utilitarian extraction of natural resources has motivated us to identify possible causes of the deficient perception of the environment concerns and some indications of causal relationships with the fact under study have been found. Lack of awareness of ecocide. From the first alerts in Carson Seal in spring 1962 and Brundtland Report 1987, a report that confronts and contrasts the viability according to the optimist, or infeasibility according to the hardline biocentrist, on economic development with environmental sustainability. To the Stern Report 2008, the economics of climate change that alert us to the non-return ecocide that could cause global warming. Even a loss of biodiversity of an ecosystem desertification and deforestation. Chemical engineers in Peruvian context. While it is true that the value of environment management is recognized in everyday practice and the productivity profitability tasks are unavoidable imperatives, while the environmental issues that prevention comes before remediation, and that nature it is not an inexhaustible source of resources, nor a bottomless sink for waste. They are still marginal to the productive structures of the Peruvian state. Ethics. The difficulties with regard to the ethics perceived by chemical engineers within the management of chemical industries are: companies and the state manage their own codes of conduct. Individuals in any management of an industry, state institutions seek to extend their revenues at the cost of everything. Total corruption does not pay in Peru, or if it pays, it does so in comfortable installments. The perspective of environment ethics is still fragmentary since it is approached within the paradigm of anthropocentrism-ecocentrism dualism. Environmental education. Environmental education in Peru is more declarative, instrumental and inoperative, since compulsive and programmed consumerism is perpetuated since the slogan of environmental education is related to the three R's, but the rare but we care about management rather than the reduction and prevention. Main hypothesis: the transversal application of training programs in environmental ethics influence the environmental concern of chemical engineering students at Peruvian universities. Statement problem: the research aims to weigh the plausibility of some of these positions in relation to the theoretical coherence on practical effectiveness of ethics in terms of the implementation of the normative analysis of the action of professionalism in accordance with the preservation of nature. In this context, the following research question can be asked. What are the effects of the influence of environmental ethics on the environmental concern of chemical engineering students from Peruvian universities? We can see our first table with variable dimension estimators, ethical perspective of nature, specific problems of environmental ethics, perspective of ethics in chemical engineering. Estimators, anthropocentric vision, geocentric vision, supranational dimension, superspecific dimension, intergenerational dimension, conceptual evolution of chemical engineering, deontology, environmental ethics in chemical engineering. And our Parable 2, environmental concerns can be understood as the mobilization of attitudes to show different levels of behaviors in the face of an environmental assessment. Quasi-experimental design with control group pre-test and post-test. Population is made up 7,288 students from 10 national universities that have the Faculty of Chemical Engineering. The students that will participate in the sample have been selected based on university availability criteria to take 32 hours training course by virtual classroom related to environment ethics issues. From a global perspective, it's about observing how the environmental ethics training program influenced the environmental concern of future professionals in the field of chemical engineering. The application of the instruments of environmental concern shows in the control group no substantive differences were observed between the pre-test and post-test groups, between the results of the dimensions, cognitive, affective, and behavioral. In the case of the experimental group, substantive differences are observed between the pre-test and post-test groups, between the results of the dimensions, cognitive, affective. However, in the case of the behavioral dimension, it can be seen that the median has not undergone any variation that may suggest a better performance in relation to this dimension of environmental concern. The descriptive statistical data in relation to the medians obtained by each of the control group and experimental group, both in the pre-test and post-test, where it is observed that only in the experimental group post-test, the median is above the medians of the other groups. In relation to the control group, the Wilcoxon test of related samples has contrast that there are not significant differences between the medians of the pre-test and post-test. Regarding the experimental group, the Wilcoxon test has contrast that there are significant differences between the medians of the pre-test and post-test. Regarding the pre-test and post-test of the control group and the experimental group, it has been verified that there are no statistical statistically significant difference. Finally, the information of the post-hoc test based on Duncan statistics is present to confirm the presence of subsets of homogeneous means. Once it has been determined that there are differences between the means, post-hoc range tests allow us to determine which means differ. The post-hoc range test identifies homogeneous subsets of means that do not differ from each other. This test has contrast that there are subsets of sample elements whose medians differ significantly. Therefore, after testing the specific hypothesis and with the corresponding post-hoc contrast test used to demonstrate the general hypothesis, it is proven that the application of training programs in environmental ethics modifies the level of environmental concern of chemical industry students, chemical engineering students. In general hypotheses in relation to the control and experimental groups, the statistics from Games-Howell, the univariate ANOVA and post-hoc test between control group and experimental group lead us to the final conclusion that the application of an environmental ethics program positively influences environmental concerns of IQ students. Thank you to everyone for watching this.